When my son died, people kept saying the same things. He was a good man. You raised him well. If you need anything. What they meant, I later learned, was if you can keep your grief tidy, we will tolerate it. For a few weeks after the funeral, I stayed in the guest room of the house he once insisted I think of as mine too. My daughter-in-law moved through those days like someone who had inherited not only a property, but an atmosphere. She spoke softly to visitors, accepted casseroles, nodded through condolences with practiced fragility. With me she was different, not cruel at first, just impatient, the way people get around something that makes them uncomfortable. You know, she said one morning, standing in the doorway while I folded blankets, we both need space to heal. Space, such a gentle word for removal. By the time she asked me to leave, it was delivered like a logistical correction rather than a decision. I can't move forward with you here. There was no argument. Grief had drained the fight out of me weeks earlier. I packed slowly, carefully, as though I were tidying up after someone else's life. I remember pausing by the framed photos in the hallway. My son at 12 grinning with missing teeth. My son at 30, arm wrapped proudly around the woman now watching me zip my suitcase. She didn't meet my eyes. I moved into a small rental apartment with thin walls and indifferent lighting. It smelled faintly of old carpet and unfamiliar cooking. I learned the creak of the floorboards. I learned which faucet needed coaxing. I learned how quiet evenings can become when there is no one left to call. People assumed many things during those months. That I was struggling financially, that I had been dependent on my son. That age had made me fragile. I never corrected them. There is a peculiar freedom in being underestimated. Expectations shrink, scrutiny softens. You are permitted invisibility. The will reading came like an administrative afterthought. A letter, a date, a conference room. I almost didn't go. But absence, I suspected, would be interpreted as weakness, and weakness has a way of inviting permanent conclusions. The room was beige in the way professional spaces often are, designed to discourage emotional excess. My daughter-in-law sat across from me, immaculate, composed, already leaning back with the ease of someone confident in the ending. There were other relatives. Distant, observant, politely curious. The lawyer spoke in the neutral cadence of a man whose job required detachment. Assets, properties, accounts. My daughter-in-law listened with the faintest trace of satisfaction, not greed exactly, but relief. Confirmation of a narrative she had already accepted. Then she looked at me. It wasn't anger. It was something closer to amusement. Well, she said lightly, loud enough for the room, I hope you enjoy being homeless. A few uncomfortable shifts in chairs, eyes dropping. No one intervened. Because what could they say? Grief grants people a strange license. Cruelty can masquerade as pain. She continued smiling. I made sure you get nothing. There it was. Not rage, just certainty. I felt unexpectedly very calm, not triumphant, not wounded, simply steady, as though I had stepped outside the emotional current of the room. The lawyer cleared his throat. There is one final section. The words changed the air. Not dramatically, just enough to interrupt the rhythm of assumption. My daughter-in-law frowned slightly, a small crack in composure. The lawyer adjusted his glasses, eyes on the document. In addition to the listed distributions, the estate includes disclosure of independent financial holdings relevant to surviving family members. The language was dry, technical, almost dull. Then he said my name, and began reading numbers, not theatrical numbers, not lottery absurdities, just facts accumulated over decades of work no one had bothered to ask about. Investments made quietly, a business sold long ago, assets managed privately. I did not look at her immediately. I listened instead to the subtle sounds of recalibration, chairs shifting again, but differently this time. Silence thickening. The room reorganizing its understanding in real time. When I finally lifted my eyes, her face had lost its practiced symmetry. Not horror, not hysteria, disorientation. The kind that comes when a story you have told yourself collapses without warning. I don't understand, she said. The lawyer's voice remained professionally even. These holdings are not part of the estate. They belong to Mrs. He said my name again. Belong. Such a simple word. Such weight. What happened next was not cinematic. There was no dramatic gasp, no exaggerated spectacle. She simply swayed, a hand reaching for the edge of the table. A delayed recognition of gravity. Then she was on the floor. People stood abruptly, concern replacing curiosity. Voices overlapping in startled confusion. I remained seated. Not from indifference, from stillness. Because the most surprising thing about the moment was not the revelation, nor even her collapse. It was the room itself. How quickly posture changed, how suddenly eyes met mine, how effortlessly respect, once absent, reappeared wearing the mask of politeness. No apology came. Not then, not later. Some fractures do not repair, they simply settle into permanence. When I left the building, the afternoon felt strangely ordinary. Traffic moving, people crossing streets. Life proceeding with its usual disregard for private earthquakes. I walked slowly, breathing air that felt no different and yet entirely changed. There was no celebration. Only a quiet, unfamiliar sensation. Not victory, recognition.